Hi, welcome back to GP Reactions. Hope you're all well, and as always, thank you for subscribing. We'll be listening to a Genesis track now from the album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and the track I'm going to be listening to is the Fly on a Windshield and Broadway Melody of 1974. I'm assuming they're all one track. So I kind of know that The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is a concept album and follows the journey of a character named Raoul, and he's a Puerto Rican gang member, and I kind of believe that he kind of gets hit by a car after seeing a lamb on Broadway, which is kind of like maybe the portent of death. So he gets hit by a car or a truck, and it's his journey sort of in that, maybe he's in a coma, maybe it's purgatory, maybe he's on his way to the afterlife. It's kind of hard to know, and I believe that this is a couple of tracks in, so I'm kind of looking forward to hearing this. And the reason why I'm kind of reacting to this is because the title of this is so similar to a Depeche Mode track that I've just reacted to, which is called Fly on the Windshield. On a windscreen, I should say. Fly on a Windscreen, that was a Depeche Mode track. I'm just wondering if whether there's kind of any connection from this track to that track, which was about 11 years after this track. But sometimes groups kind of like do a homage to another group's music. So yeah, I'm really interested to get straight into this. And I'm assuming that this isn't two songs completely separate, but it's one that kind of transitions into another. Okay, without further ado.
Something solid forming in the air, and the wall of death is lowered in Times Square. No one seems to care. They carry on as if nothing was there. The wind is blowing harder now, blowing dust into my eyes. The dust settles on my skin, making a crust I cannot move in. And I'm hovering like a fly, waiting for the windshield on the freeway.
Wow, that was amazing. I was so taken in. I was kind of like almost hypnotized by Peter Gabriel's voice. I didn't expect that kind of sudden step up into. I should have expected that, because I know they've done this with other songs. But I'm gonna have to take that back a little bit, because that really caught me surprised. That's really kind of like a heavy transition. That sounds very much like a Steve Hackett guitar there. Very kind of haunting, and it never seems like a sort of a choppy. It's always this kind of smooth wave of music when he plays that guitar. Yeah, it's really impressive. This is really good.
Echoes of the Broadway Everglades, with our mythical Madonnas still walking in their shades. Lenny Bruce declares a truce and blazes other hand. Marshall McLuhan can show you an head buried in the sand. Sirens on the rooftops wailing, but there's no ship sailing. Groucho with his movies trailing stands alone with his punchline failing. Ku Klux Klan serve hot soul food, and the band plays in the mood. The cheerleader waves her cyanide wand. There's a smell of peach blossom and bitter almond. Carl Chessman sniffs the air and leads the parade. He knows, innocent, you can bottle all you made. There's Howard Hughes in blue suede shoes, smiling at the majorette, smoking Winston cigarettes. And as the song and dance begins, the children play at home with needles and pins.
So that was Genesis with Fly on a Windshield and Broadway Melody of 1974. That was a wonderful song. I was I'm just completely hypnotized by Peter Gabriel's voice on this, and I think I halfway through, I think it was maybe the Broadway Melody, I was kind of thinking how could Phil Collins do this? I don't think Phil Collins could do this kind of song. It's a particular kind of style that Peter Gabriel just is so kind of fantastic. It was kind of like between singing and kind of talking, but I think on a track like this, when he sings like that, it's like velvet. And you kind of get lost in the story of what he's trying to say. I'm not sure what the lyrics were about on a Broadway Melody of 74. I'm guessing A Fly on a Windshield was maybe took us up to the point where Raoul's hit by a truck. But I'm going to have to kind of maybe look into these lyrics a bit to try and understand the references and perhaps what they could mean in the context of this. So just kind of bear with me 2 seconds. So there's something solid forming in the air, and the wall of death is lowered in Times Square. No one seems to care. They carry on as if nothing was there. So the wall of death, I'm assuming that's for the fly, it would be like a windshield. But it could be that could be Raoul could have been a fly in this case. You know, your life is short. You don't know when your time is up, and maybe that's he kind of hits the truck hits him. He sees the lamp, and then a truck hits him or a car. They carry on as if nothing was there. The wind is blowing harder now, blowing dust into my eyes. The dust settles on my skin, making a crust I cannot move in. I'm hovering like a fly, waiting for the windshield on a freeway. And this is the first part, fly on a windshield, but something really kind of like strange and important like about these lyrics, that there's something solid forming in the air. The wall of death is lowered in Times Square. And clearly this is about New York. Broadway's in New York. Blowing dust into my eyes. They carry on as if nothing was there. The wind is blowing harder now, blowing dust into my eyes. The dust settles on my skin, making a crust I cannot move. Hovering like a fly, waiting for the windshield on the freeway. Do you know what? Last night I was watching something about the World Trade Towers, the World's Trade Towers, the Twin Towers, and these first couple of verses just seem really strange. When I think of that and reading this, it's just kind of really odd, really odd. Anywho, going on to the Broadway Melody of 1974, echoes of a Broadway Everglades. Everglades, does that kind of mean it's full of alligators? With her mystical Madonna still waiting in their shades, Lenny Bruce declares a truce and plays his other hand. So Lenny Bruce was, at the time, Lenny Bruce was a very controversial comic, a comedian, and I believe that around about the time of 74 he was banned. So I guess, you know, that's him. He declares a truce, and maybe he's got more strings to his bow than just comedy. So maybe he's playing his other hand. Marshall McLuhan, casual viewers, head buried in the sand. Casual viewers, head buried in the sand. So what I've read about Marshall McLuhan is that he was basically an academic. He's specialised in media, but around about the time of 74 he was not maybe in the public eye so much, so his academia was maybe on a wane, so perhaps that's why his head's buried in the sand, because he doesn't understand a lot of what's going on there and then. I think he was more of a 60s academic. Sirens on the rooftop wailing, but there's no ship sailing. Sirens on the rooftop wailing. Sirens. That's kind of got double meaning. It could be sirens as in ambulance, police, or it could be sirens as in the mythological siren that would drive ships onto the rocks, but there's no ship sailing, so it's pointless them kind of wailing on rooftops because there's no ships. Groucho with his movies trailing stands alone with his punchlines failing. Again, another, maybe his comedy's failing as well. Ku Klux Klan serve hot soul food in the mood. That's interesting because soul food is I think in America soul food was synonymous with the with black communities. I think anyway. I'm not sure. Maybe if you can correct me if that's wrong. The cheerleader waves her cyanide wand. There's a smell of bleached blossom and bitter almond. Almond is kind of what goes to make cyanide. I'm not kind of sure about that line at all. Carol Chessman sniffs the air and leads a parade. He knows innocent. He knows innocent. You can bottle or you made. So I think the clue there is he knows in a scent, which is how it's kind of written. But he actually claimed he was innocent. He was a kidnapper. I'm not sure if he killed people, but I'm assuming he did because I think he was executed. I think he was one of the last people to be executed. But he knew, he said he was innocent, and you can bottle all you made. He made quite a lot of money from movie rights. He wrote books. So I guess that's that. Howard Hughes in blue suede shoes, smiling at the majorettes, smoking Winston cigarettes. Again, Howard Hughes was a reclusive millionaire. But interestingly, even though he's reclusive, he was a reclusive billionaire. I think interesting thing about that was, even though he's reclusive, he was still involved with I think he was involved with maybe music and movies, the movie industry. As the song and dance begins, the children play at home with needles and pins. So as this is a concept album, I have to imagine that all of these people that have been mentioned were somehow in a consciousness of this character called Raoul, and maybe this is that moment when the present and the past all kind of rush through your mind. Your life flashes before you at the moment that you kind of die or perhaps go into a coma. I'm still on the fence about that, and perhaps that all of these people shared with him a common trait, that they were all in a sense they were all flawed in some ways. Lenny Bruce was a flawed comedian. Marshall McLuhan was kind of flawed in that maybe he had opinions about modern media that weren't, but he hadn't kind of like stayed up to date with it, so his opinions were no longer kind of valued. The Ku Klux Klan clearly flawed. If they're serving hot soul food, then that's clearly kind of hypocrisy within such a horrible organisation. I suppose Carol Chessman again was a flawed character in that, potentially he was kidnapping, he was killing, and he was executed, but the flaw maybe comes in the fact that he was allowed the platform to produce books and stuff, and to have talks with, I suppose, movie companies about film rights and stuff. I mean, I don't know if there's any film rights of him. Again, there's a bit of hypocrisy in being a reclusive billionaire, but then still being involved with industry and industries, music, media, and otherwise. And yeah, all of these things must have flashed through his mind, and they're all flawed characters, like perhaps he himself is, and maybe he sits in purgatory, considering his life as a flawed character as he works his way through the different elements of this album, to where he kind of maybe where he's ultimately going to end up being. In heaven, or maybe he wakes up again, who knows. That's a really kind of interesting song. I can't disguise the fact that all these elements must have been very, I'm not sure I'm not sure who wrote this actually, whether it was Peter Gabriel who wrote lyrics, and whether anyone was actually living in New York at that time. Clearly the influences of this album surround Broadway in New York. So yeah, I'm sure there's some really interesting stories that lie behind the album and these lyrics that hopefully some of you guys out there might know a little bit more about where Genesis were at in 1974. Because I'm assuming that Peter Gabriel left after this album. He left in 1975, was it? 74, 75, but either way, I think he left after this album. So perhaps he was moving on as Raoul was also moving on. The other thing to say, I mean, I just kind of love the kind of grinding guitar in the Broadway Melody. Did it, did it, did it, did it. And the music, and I think the music is fantastic in this. I kind of vaguely noticed the transition from Fly on a Windshield into the Broadway Melody. It's kind of really, really smooth. The Fly on a Windshield was quite a very, very short segment of this. Yeah, I kind of really, really enjoyed it. It's one of those songs I'm going to have to listen to about 30 times to see if I can figure out what it's really about. And also to actually fully appreciate the music in it as well. Yeah, I'm a bit blown away by this, to be fair. And like I said, you know, I don't think I love Phil Collins and I love Genesis with Phil Collins, but this is definitely a Peter Gabriel song, and it's probably why I don't think Phil Collins has ever actually sang over this or live or anything. I think it's very kind of difficult to kind of pull off without seeming too cheesy, and yeah, it's just magnificent lyrics, magnificent music. I can't really kind of add too much to that. I think there's so many elements to this song, to the album, to the lyrics of this song that I'm probably kind of completely missing. So I really love it if you could join me in the comments below and tell me what you think and feel about this track. And yeah, I enjoyed reacting to this. This was great. I'm looking at the album cover as well. The album cover's kind of fantastic, and I'm kind of wondering, you know, if the images we're seeing are to do with the Raoul and his journey. I've never really kind of looked at the album cover of this in any particular detail. So yeah, that everything about it, the artwork, the music, the lyrics, brilliant. Yeah, so please join me again. Please join me soon. Hopefully I'll have some more Genesis for you. I think I've got a Genesis track in mind for Halloween, which is around a week or so time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So till next time, guys, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll have some more music for you real soon.